MTC. EBS 6 Exercise 1. In its simplest form, apparent movement can be reduced to two events: first one appears, then the other, their combined appearance yielding the appearance of movement. Of course, a number of variables, like the brightness of the images, and their form, will determine if movement will actually be perceived by the observer. No apparatus whatever is needed to illustrate this simplest case. Your own two eyes will do. Because the eyes are separated by a distance of about 2.5 inches, it follows as a consequence of geometry that the images formed on the two retinas of those two eyes will differ slightly from one another in most circumstances. 2.5. To see apparent movement at work, hold your finger up about 2 feet in front of your eyes while staring at a distant object. 2. Quickly blink one eye, then the other, paying attention as you do to the appearance of the nearby finger. What you will see is not the rapid juxtaposition of two separate and slightly different images, but a single image that will appear to move in jerky fashion from side to side. Somehow, the successive images have been integrated into a fluid sequence of movement, rather than seen as independent, alternating events. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS 6 Exercise 2. The idea of virtue as an aspect of character that cannot be completely or adequately described in the abstract, lends itself to stories of heroic deeds. To undertake a series of actions to achieve an end that is recognized as good, is the stuff of stories from Greek myths to contemporary movies to children's adventures. Television has provided an excellent vehicle for the demonstration of heroic action because it can summarize action and outcome through narrative structure while heavily dramatizing the action and its effects. Whether it is the fantastical character of Doctor Who on children's television or the brave and adventurous members of the Spooks team, heroes act in the interests of others, often taking risks to realize the happiness of others. Doctor Who, Spooks. We are shown the operation of reflective thought. The reasons for action are often set out clearly in the script, and we see the happiness achieved by the beneficiaries and, as importantly, the happiness of the hero in having acted with virtue. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS 6 Exercise 3. While we often carefully monitor what is said to achieve the desired effect, how we are saying it may escape censor such that the reality of the situation is leaked despite our best efforts. In other words, nonverbal communication can be thought of as a more truthful form of communication through the insights that it affords into what may lie behind the verbal message. This is the window on the soul assumption. It is only true to a point. Even in the case of facial expressions, it would be wrong to assume a simple, direct, and unerring cause-effect relationship with underlying emotional states. Certain facial displays are regulated in keeping with the social context, making them more or less likely to be exhibited perhaps in exaggerated form. Social intentions and motives can be at the root of such expressions rather than blind emotional states. Skilled interactors can learn to control what their bodies say as well as the messages sent in words. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS 6 Exercise 4. A recent phenomenon of consumer guidance is the book group. Traditionally, this might mean a small group of friends or acquaintances choosing to read a certain text at the same time and meeting up, over a cup of coffee or glass of wine, to discuss it in a friendly atmosphere, away from academic jargon or the environment of a classroom. Readers would take turns suggesting new titles, thus democratically ensuring that each member would have a say in the group's reading matter, and allowing for diverse authors and genres being covered. In the last decade of the 20th century, however, the reading club, in the true fashion of the media age, went global. It was adopted by television. 2010. In 1996, the successful and influential American chat show host Oprah Winfrey started up Oprah's Book Club. 1996, Oprah Winfrey Oprah's Book Club. The books she reviewed and discussed in her programs were immediately picked up and discussed by private book groups across the country and, soon, the world, and, more often than not, reached bestseller status. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS 6 Exercise 5-6. When we give our undivided attention to whatever it is we're doing, we gather clues that allow us to anticipate things before they happen. When we notice occasional irregular brake lights from a car in front of us, that prepares us to think that sooner or later, this driver is going to lock up those brakes and trigger the usual cascade of skid marks and curse words. A child teetering by the edge of a pool gives us a clue about where they might be a minute from now if they suddenly drop out of sight. But while we're switching our attention between tasks, we don't see some of these little details, and we lose the clues that they offer. And without them, when trouble pops up in front of us, it often seems like the unexpected came out of nowhere. When we switch our attention between two things, we're not just short on information. We too often end up short on time to react. Is a confused driver really going to wait until we're finished with our text to slam on his brakes? When we look up, chances are that disaster is already going to be in progress. In time-critical situations, our attempts to pay attention to more than one thing at once often leave us at the limits of what we call biological time. That minimum amount of time that a human brain needs to mentally sort out a situation and set limbs in motion. But there are even more problems with trying to switch our attention back and forth between two tasks. When we look away from one task, like a phone, and back to the other task, like driving, we assume that we're back and our attention is now fully directed at the out-the-window scene. Unfortunately, it isn't. It seems that there is a sort of hangover effect when we switch between tasks. That is, returning our attention to a task isn't instant, it takes us a while to get going again. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS 6 Exercise 7. From the 17th century to the beginning of the 20th century, most people in Western society considered that ill health was something that just happened to someone and that there was very little that could be done in terms of protecting against it. 1720. Once they were ill, it was argued, people simply expected to seek medical care in order to be cured. Unfortunately, medicine was not always able to help them. In fact, the leading causes of death during this period were the acute, i.e. sudden onset, infectious diseases such as influenza, pneumonia, and tuberculosis. Once contracted, the duration of such illnesses was relatively short, a person either died or got well within a matter of weeks. People also felt little responsibility for contracting these illnesses because they believed that it was impossible to avoid them. Some believed that their illness was the work of evil forces or divine intervention. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS 6 Exercise 8. In the absence of public policy to reduce pollution, markets will overproduce goods or services associated with pollution because the producer does not pay the full cost of its inputs. If the factory owner doesn't need to pay for the costs of the carbon dioxide added to the atmosphere from burning coal, then he will make decisions about how much coal to burn relying on an artificially low coal price. The price is artificially low because it does not reflect the damages from the carbon dioxide emissions flowing from the factory's smokestack. If the price reflected the true social cost of burning coal, then the factory would likely burn less coal. The higher price of coal provides the right incentive to factory managers to fine-tune their equipment to reduce energy consumption, buy more energy-efficient machines, and otherwise cut down on its coal consumption. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS 6 Exercise 9. It is important that you recognize the motivational characteristics associated with failure-avoiding athletes so you do not misdiagnose their motivational problems. On the surface, failure-avoiding athletes appear not to care, but in reality they care deeply. It's not that they lack motivation, they are just motivated differently, hoping to avoid failure rather than striving for success. Some coaches try to motivate failure avoiders by arranging success experiences, figuring that consistent success should help these athletes develop the qualities of success seekers. However, they often find that failure avoiders reject success. Rather than internalizing success, failure avoiders discount good performances, believing that they got lucky or their opponent was having an off day, or some other external explanation. As a result, success does not provide them with positive feelings of accomplishment, nor does it raise their confidence in their ability to succeed again in the future. Thus success has little impact on their confidence or motivation because they discount it. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS 6 Exercise 10. One of the oldest examples of early democracy comes from ancient Mesopotamia during the 3rd and 2nd millennia BCE. In 1943, a Danish Assyriologist named Thorkild Jacobsen asserted that governance by assemblies was common in Mesopotamia before centralizing rulers destroyed this pattern. 1943, Thorkild Jacobsen. Jacobsen had no direct evidence to back up this claim, so he referred to the Epic of Gilgamesh, in which a discussion took place between King Gilgamesh and a council of elders. Jacobsen Gilgamesh. It is said that Gilgamesh sought popular support in a conflict with King Aga of Kish. Gilgamesh Kish Aga. To obtain this support he made a case to the elders of the city of Uruk, who then considered this question in their assembly. Uruk. They agreed to provide their support, and of Gilgamesh we are told that he rejoiced and his liver was made bright. Gilgamesh. Even if there wasn't a popular referendum on resistance against Kish, the situation described here is considerably more democratic than if Gilgamesh had tried to rule by fear and force. Kish Gilgamesh. The big problem is that we do not know whether things actually happened this way. Gilgamesh himself may have not even existed. Gilgamesh. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS 6 Exercise 11-12. Across most of history, the magnitude of the importance humans attached to what they saw in the skies was fully matched by the magnitude of their ignorance about the real character of what they were seeing and about the actual lines of influence sky patterns exerted upon their affairs. How this ignorance came to be dispelled by the accumulation of accurate scientific knowledge is the story of modern astronomy. Early modern revolutions in knowledge about the heavens played a pivotal role in the emergence of science-based technological civilization. And for astronomy, as with so many domains of human life, the rise of this civilization has been revolutionary. Among the modern natural sciences, astronomy has no rival in terms of the magnitude or ultimate significance of its discoveries. Over the past several centuries, and accelerating across the 20th, modern astronomy has produced a cascade of extraordinary discoveries that have utterly transformed human understanding of the universe and the place of the Earth in it. 2.0. What sets modern astronomy apart from its predecessors is surely not the mental ability of its practitioners but rather the capabilities of its instruments. Starting with the small homemade telescope that Galileo first pointed into the sky and extending to contemporary telescopes that are the size of large buildings, the possibilities and pace of astronomical scientific advance have been tightly coupled with advances in instrumentation made possible by modern technology. MTC. Good job.